Welcome back to Grand Slam Sports. My name is Jace Hodge, over on the desk, Jackson Strasburger and Nate Long. No Charles Foster today. He's on vacation in Florida. What a guy. But first off, the NCAA tournament has begun, and we're going to talk about our Final Four picks. I know we and Nate have some similarities, but Jackson has some interesting picks. Let's go ahead and take a look at our Final Fours. We'll begin with mine. I have Auburn and Maryland and Duke versus Kentucky. I know Maryland, Kentucky, some iffy picks, but we'll throw it over to you guys and see what you guys have.
I was going to start with Jackson, and you made the joke last week that we were here and that some terrible picks by Nate have 32 more. Well, we'll hear 32 more of Jackson as well, but here's 4 to start with. Iowa State.
Okay.
I don't see it.
I like this Auburn team. I can definitely see this Auburn team making it to the Final Four. I just like this Iowa State team a little bit more. I like their shooting splits. They have a deep depth. Yes, they're missing a top key scorer on their team, but their defense, their offense, they've stepped up, and I think they can really become a dominant force.
When you lose your one of your best scorers, I think that's a big detriment. When you look at Auburn, Johnny Broome, a guy who's looking to be the National Player of the Year, him and Cooper Flagg, very tight race. I like Auburn better in that situation. Jace, we'll send it back over to you at the wall. What are you thinking?
I absolutely agree. Auburn and Johnny Broome, like you said, he's probably the best player, if not, Cooper Flagg, but Johnny Broome is him. And Iowa State, with the injuries to Keyshawn Gilbert, I just don't see them competing in that region. I see them losing even today. I mean, before we post this, they play against Lipscomb. It could happen. For all we know, they get upset. I mean, Iowa State, that injury is monumental because he's their second leading scorer on that team, around 13 points per game. And Auburn, to me, just has an easier region. I know that second round game is going to be tough against Creighton, but other than that, I don't see much teams that can compete with them in that region.
Yeah, I completely agree. Looking at Auburn, me and you, Jace, we both have them winning it all. We have Auburn winning it all because of Johnny Broome and because of that team around him. They've looked so good this year. And we will say they have lost 3 of their last 4 games. That is something that is kind of big, something that you don't really want to talk about. But I feel okay about this Auburn team because this team was incredible during the season. This team played Purdue, and they beat them by like 30 points. I remember watching this game on my way back from a road trip and thinking, what is Purdue doing? I think this team can come around. This is the team to beat. You can talk a little bit about Duke as well, Jackson, but I've got some things to kind of refute that Duke pick.
I see Duke. We talked about Cooper Flagg being probably the player of the year, number 1 player in the country and going into the draft. They have Connor Knippel, a top 10 pick. They have their big center, another lottery pick. This team and these freshmen, and you can't ignore outside of their freshmen, they have fantastic players all around.
I would not disagree that they have fantastic players, Duke does. Throw some stats at you, though, Jackson. What is the history of guys who are expected to go number 1, and how well do those teams do in the tourney? I'll give you a quick up to both of you. We talked about this before the show. What was the last time a number 1 overall pick won the national championship?
2014. Anthony Davis. And
2012.
2012, sorry. Anthony Davis and Kentucky, 2012. So it's been now 12 years since the first overall pick has won the tournament. So, I mean, I agree. I think Duke can still get out of that region, but I don't think they can win at all because the history just isn't in their favor. Yes, they have great players, but I think Auburn is a more complete team, and they had the harder schedule with the SEC. Duke was in the ACC, and they're one of 2 remainings left in that conference, them and UNC, who might go out today. The ACC is not competitive, and Duke, I think, is going to hurt them in the long run.
Yeah, Duke overall in KenPom rankings, 59th in strength of schedule for the season. A team like Auburn was number 2. Yeah. Alabama was number 1, another SEC team. Because, 14 of these 16 SEC teams made it into the tournament. But back to my last point with you, Jackson, looking at number 1 picks, Paulo Banchero on that Duke team, Zion Williamson, Duke team, Cade Cunningham, Oklahoma State, didn't do as well. You had Ayton, Fultz, Anthony Edwards, Simmons, Anthony Wiggins. You can go down the list, and there is not many for when the first overall pick can lead their team to a national championship. There's always some type of disconnect from NBA players to actually winning the tournament because there's so much more a part of basketball as a team than just being talented.
That's why I picked Duke. I think there's more than this team than just Cooper Flagg. He is up there in points. He's up there in assists. He's up there in rebounds. He is going to be the player of the year for a reason, and he has a team around him as well. You mentioned strength of schedule. Yes, they played in the ACT. They also won almost every game by 20+ while they were in their conference games, dominating the ACC and clearly the best team.
Let's take a step away from these top teams. And look at some underdogs. We saw some upsets in day one. We saw McNeese get a victory, Drake get a victory, Arkansas beating Kansas. We've seen plenty of upsets in day one. And I want to ask you guys, what's our favorite so far, Cinderella story that we're seeing in March Madness?
Yeah, no, I love this. You mentioned McNeese. I love this McNeese team. I have them going pretty far, losing to Gonzaga. Gonzaga, correct, yeah, in the Elite Eight and making it far into their side. I think they could be a dominant team. They showed that against Clemson, who, yes, was in the ACC, a struggling team, but maybe you can see a runaway here for them.
I'm going to go kind of a different direction, I would say. Looking at an Arkansas team, a team that had two great coaches, Bill Self and John Calipari, who really battled it out in that 7-10 matchup. And I just have gotten to the part where you just can't count out good coaching. I don't think coaching is taken seriously enough in March Madness that you have to have a good coach to make it far. You look at Dan Hurley, you look at other guys, Rick Pitino now with St. John's. You have to have a good coach to make it far, and that's where I'm at right now with Arkansas. You have a great coach. Your team overall, maybe not the best you'd like to see it. A lot of transfers in for a first year head coach. But I'm liking Arkansas to make a little run here in March Madness.
I mean, the thing with Arkansas now is that they have a really tough matchup. You mentioned, the coaching and how important it is. They get Rick Pitino next in St. John's. That's a difficult matchup for the Razorbacks.
I think that is an incredible matchup. We're going to see who gets outcoached, and it's going to be hard for both sides to see because I picked St. John's personally. I think almost everyone here did, but I would not count out the Razorbacks.
Absolutely.
You just can never count them out.
You can't, and they beat a Kansas team that was struggling late in the season, losing to games like Missouri, West Virginia, kind of falling. They were number one at one point. They fell out of the rankings, and they're struggling through. I can definitely see Arkansas making a run as they played a very good game against them.
Jace, who's your kind of upset pick that you're liking right now?
So, we are at a D2 school, so we have watched a lot of D2 basketball and Division II teams. Well, Drake's kind of one of them. Because 4 of their 5 starters are transfers from the Division II level. Their coach is a first-year coach who coached at Northwest Missouri State, which is a Division II school, basically a Division II program. This year, they're now 31-3. They just took it to Missouri, and they are very, very fun to watch. First-year head coach Ben McCollum has done a phenomenal job, and their freshman, Sturtz, guy's phenomenal. Hitting one-leg three-pointers, hitting floaters inside the lane. Drake has a heck of a basketball team, and I think they can beat Texas Tech next round too.
Any other, I would say, teams that you're looking to see kind of make a little bit of a run? I know there's some upset picks that we thought were going to happen in Michigan and UC San Diego. Everyone was thinking that they're going to beat Michigan. And there's also some other ones that happened, like Drake. Trying to think off the top of my head other ones, that did happen. But is there any other teams that you guys are looking at thinking that they can make it a little bit of a push, a little bit of a run come these next couple rounds?
I know they're not a lower-ranked team, but Gonzaga did not have the greatest year yet and played a very good game against, who did they play? Georgia. Played very well.
Killed Georgia.
Dominated Georgia. And I think they can go on a run, maybe even threatening beating Tennessee to make it to the Final Four.
See, I'm looking at Vanderbilt. I know in our full brackets, I have Vanderbilt going all the way to the Elite Eight. I know it's outrageous, but it's reasonable because the path is there. They play St. Mary's, who historically struggles in the first round. Then they get a possible matchup against Bama, who they've already beaten this year in the SEC. And then they get BYU or Wisconsin. I think the path for Vanderbilt to make it is there because, the SEC, the strength of play in that conference this year was second to none. And Vanderbilt, because of that, has played many difficult games. And if they can use that in the tournament, I can see them making a run to the Elite Eight.
I love that Vanderbilt pick, as they are an upset team. You play them against anybody who's higher ranked than them, they're going to surprise them. They came out, they played very good against Mizzou when they were ranked, played very good against Alabama when they were ranked, and just kind of dominated against these ranked teams. But they struggled against the lower ranked teams. That's where I see this going to fall.
We'll head back into the top team talk again. The 1 seeds, the 4 1 seeds, Houston, Florida, Duke, and Auburn. The question I'm posing is which of these 1 seeds is going to fall first?
We're just going to throw this out here for me. I know Jackson has him going to his Final Four. I believe he has him in the championship game. A little look in Florida. I know every single guy you see on your TV is loving Florida. Yes, they're a good team. 30-4, won the SEC. Congrats. They're playing so well. I just don't know if they have enough in the tank to continue to last.
Because I feel like we see teams always win the conference tournament, but they falter early in March Madness. It happens every year.
It happens every year. And when you look at a team like Florida, I mean, yes, number 2 ranked overall through KenPom rankings, number 1 offensively, number 10 defensively. Overall, this is a good team. We're not doubting how good of a team that Florida is. I just really think that Florida, as a team, is just going to run out of steam. They've went on this huge win streak. They had to go through that gauntlet of the SEC. And when you get to this part of March, you start to lose steam. Injuries happen. And I'm not sure really the coach, coaching is a big part. I'm not sure if the coach can lead this Florida squad to the chip. Jace, back to you. What are you thinking?
I got to go with Houston. I feel like every year we say this with the Cougars because they always struggle in the tournament. I mean, that one year they made the Final Four. Other than that, they have consistently struggled in the early rounds of March Madness. And the matchup second round against Gonzaga, well, I have my eye on that one. I think the Bulldogs can win that matchup against Houston. I just don't see Houston being a team that can win it all. I mean, they're a very complete team, a very good team, very well-coached team. But I just don't see them doing well here in the early rounds again.
Yeah, I have to agree with you with Houston there. They've failed me in the past, and I can't trust them anymore. They have a good team. I think they're the worst 1 seed here, and I just don't see them really making it even to the Elite 8.
I would disagree to a little bit of a point. This Houston team as a whole is a lot better offensively than they have in years past. As a team defensively, Houston is known for defense. Houston can play defense with their eyes closed. But when you look offensively the last couple of years and why they've failed is because the offensive rating, offensive scoring ability, especially from the three-point line, was just not there. This year, Houston, number 11 in the country offensively. They've really picked up that slack, as you could say, offensively. So that's why I still lean towards Florida, who many say is the hottest team right now, just running out of that steam.
I just can't pick Florida. They have a 7'9" dude who they don't play because they don't need him. They have other players over 7 foot. They have more depth. They're bigger. They're stronger. They're faster. They shoot well. Their guards are fantastic. They have everything I want in a team.
So Houston, Florida seems to be a little bit of a consensus between 2 teams that might fall. Auburn and Duke, the 2 teams that we think can make the Final Four fairly easily. But, I mean, if they were to falter, where's it going to be? Auburn and Duke, I mean, Auburn, the region seems difficult to an extent. Duke, the region seems pretty easy overall. I mean, where do we see Auburn and Duke landing in this?
Well, right now, Auburn, me and Jace obviously has Auburn winning it all. But when I look at this Auburn team, their biggest test, I think, is this next game against a Creighton team that can come out firing, hot as can be, and that's why they beat Louisville. They just did not miss. At one point, I think they were around 52%, about halfway through the second half, from the three-point line. They were just hitting. And a team with that has a lot of, I would say, just a lot of basketball played between those guys at Creighton. They've played it. They've been in these moments before. A lot of that, when you go against a team like Auburn, a team that's supposed to beat you, and you can just shoot the lights out, that can really be detrimental. So for Auburn, I think that this first game after this last one, this game that's going to happen, I believe it's tomorrow, I think that's going to be the biggest test for them.
I would have to go to their one where they get to the Elite 8 and they play Iowa State to go to the Final Four. I trust this Iowa State team a lot. This is where I see Auburn, I see Iowa State competing, and they will have. That's going to be one of the best games of the tournament, I think.
Iowa State is not making it there. That's just my opinion personally. I think they get beat by Michigan State in the Sweet 16 at the latest, if they don't lose before then. I'm going to turn to Duke real quick because Duke, I think the first game, Mount St. Mary's, that should be a blowout, obviously. The second game against Baylor, Mississippi State, that should be a blowout too, in my opinion. But once they get to that Sweet 16, I'm looking at the possible Oregon or Arizona matchup as a difficult one. I see Arizona could pose them more problems than Oregon. But Arizona, I mean, you can never count them out in March.
Jace, take that back.
Oh,
Honestly,
no.
Take that Arizona back. Because do you want to look at your bracket real quick?
Hey.
Because if we look at your bracket, Jace, I think you have Arizona losing to Akron first round.
I do.
Explain to me this.
I mean, your mind goes through a lot, in the month of March, trying to pick teams, trying to, do whatnot. I'm saying if anyone is to pose a problem against Duke, it's going to be Arizona. Do I think they make it there? Possibly not. But I think if they do, they would pose the biggest threat to beating Duke. That was my point.
I don't think a team can beat Duke. I've watched them play. I consistently watch their games. I think Duke is one of the best teams we've seen in a very long time, and I don't think there's a way they lose.
The one team I think that Duke can lose to and it's just because of how powerfully offensively they are. That is in Alabama. Alabama is a very good team. They got, I believe it's Mark Sears at the point guard, but they can score, and that is what they're known for. Defensively, not so much, but if you get in a shootout with Alabama, Duke, in that Elite Eight round, I don't know. I would not count out Alabama to win a shootout with any team.
I've been saying that Bama's an underdog. They can make a run here. I mean, if they get hot, they get past Robert Morris today. They get past the 7-10 of Vanderbilt and St. Mary's. They can make a run because, I mean, their offense is very good, but that defense is just a big question mark. Defense is very important here in March, and playing defense consistently, it's a big thing that you have to have in March. That's why I think Bama's going to falter pretty early on. But it's nice to talk some March for once, and when we come back to Grissom next week, we'll have the last 16 teams, maybe the last 8 teams. It'll get interesting as we head down to the wire. But next, some baseball. Dodgers and Cubs playing from Tokyo. First 2 games of the season started up next. I mentioned baseball was back, and it was in Tokyo. Nate, what does that mean for the MLB?
When you look at the MLB, you look at American sports. You look at football, you look at basketball, and you look at how they're starting to try to go global. And when you look at the MLB playing in Tokyo, with the MLB also adding a lot of players who aren't from America, and that's kind of been their staple for years now, I think it's good to see them in Tokyo, see them kind of starting to outreach outside of America, because really when you look at baseball overall, it's behind the favorites here in America. You know, you got the football and the basketball who really take control of everything. But when you look at baseball, I think that this international push for the MLB to play these games outside of America, play them in Tokyo, really will help them grow as a sport. And it's also, when you look at it, when you look at like Olympics and stuff like that, I know they're bringing flag football, but baseball is also a huge part that you can grow in this Olympic run. And America doesn't have to rule all of MLB baseball.
Well, we look into those 2 games, and the Dodgers won both against the Cubs 4-1, 6-3. Shohei Ohtani hit a home run in game number 2. Jackson, I go over to you. The Dodgers win both games to begin the regular season. They look pretty good again.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say they weren't good. And you mentioned the Tokyo, Shohei Ohtani going back home, playing fantastically. And you see a lot of pitchers. The Dodgers, they spent money, they capitalized. It really ended up working, winning 6-3 and 4-1, just dominating wins.
And you look into, Enrique Hernandez, he had 3 RBIs in the second game for the Dodgers. And, the Cubs, the pitching's still a question mark, really.
It's really the depth that the Dodgers can go. When you have Enrique Hernandez coming in there, he can give you 3 RBIs. You have Shohei Ohtani, Max Muncy, Freddie Freeman. You can go all over this lineup and name everybody up and down, and they're just dominant forces throughout the way.
We look into, the rest of the season now. Obviously it's the first 2 games. These teams will go back into spring training before they get back into the season. But the Cubs, the Dodgers, where do you see these teams ending up at the end of the season?
Yeah, I see the Dodgers really making, again, that World Series push. They spent the right amount of money. The Cubs, though, maybe winning the division. They got the players they kind of needed. They filled some holes. It's just that pitching, just a weak NL Central division. It's going to be a fun fight all the way through the end.
We're talking about the end of the season, so we might as well bring up some awards and our early MVP favorites. Jackson, I'm going to go to you first and who you like to come out of the AL and the NL as the 2 most valuable players.
Well, if we're just talking who's going to come out of it, who's going to be the best, the AL, I have who I think should have won it last year. Close battle between him and Judge. Bobby Witt Jr., the best defensive shortstop there is in the game right now, hitting offensively, just killing the game of baseball. On the NL side, if he's healthy, he is the best player in the league. Ronald Acuna Jr. from Atlanta, dominant force, and can really change the game with all 5 tools.
2 different guys there for the MVP race. Nate, who do you think?
Well, I come from a casual position. I really don't find myself sitting down and watching a lot of baseball. So when you look at my picks, you kind of like, well, that sounds pretty obvious. We'll go first with the NL, talking about the Dodgers, Shohei Ohtani, a guy who can both pitch and hit. I know he's gone through the surgery of his elbow, but I think that he's got a good possibility of winning that MVP this year. And when you look at the AL, I'm going with Aaron Judge, Yankees. We're talking about Yankees and Dodgers, 2 major market teams. When you look at it, they spend a lot of money. They want to win. I just look at those 2 guys, and I'm thinking best players on the best teams winning MVP.
It's not a bad take. They were the 2 MVPs last year, so why wouldn't they win it again? They're the 2 best talents in baseball. But the 2 guys I'm going to go with some underdogs. For the AL, I like Gunnar Henderson a lot. The Orioles shortstop, he played really well last year. I think if he can take that next step forward, he can make Baltimore a World Series contender and make himself an MVP contender. For the NL, I mean, I like Shohei a lot, but I like the signing from the New York Mets, Juan Soto. As a Yankees fan, I know what Juan Soto can do with a bat in his hands, and he can smack a ball 500 feet if he wants to at times. And this guy is going to be a very, very good talent for the New York Mets, and I could see him winning the NL MVP with the Mets. Jackson?
Yeah, I have one issue with both of those players, and they are the same. It's their defense. Gunnar Henderson has struggled on the defensive side. So has Soto. We've seen him make crucial mistakes in big games. And you need to be the most valuable player on both sides of the ball, and that could really hurt you.
My other guy I like in the NL, and I know this might not make you too happy, Jackson, Elliot De La Cruz for the Cincinnati Reds, their shortstop. He's a younger guy, very talented guy, very speedy guy. I could see him popping off this year. I think the Reds can be a contender, I've said it before, to win the NL Central.
The Reds didn't get better. They aren't going to be a team in the playoffs, and you're going to want a team in the playoffs to get an MVP. Elliot De La Cruz strikes out too much. He was first in strikeout rate last year. And now you're talking about a Reds team that got worse, losing Jonathan India, not gaining anything in the pitching market. I mean, you don't have anything. Hunter Green is not a starting pitcher. He should not be a number one. He just throws hard and prays, and it doesn't work.
Well, let's head into some football, shall we? I know it's Jackson's mock draft week, but first, let's talk some free agent signings and go through who we think made the biggest move in the NFL free agency. Nate, starting with you.
I'm not looking at just one particular player, you could say. I kind of almost said it there. I'm looking at a team that looks like they're going all out. But what are they really doing? That's the question. The New England Patriots. I mean, you see some of the guys they signed, Carlton Davis, Mac Hollins, Milton Williams, Harold Landry, and they all signed them to pretty big deals, and every single one of them, I think, was overpaid. So when you look at the New England Patriots, and they're in a team with the Bills, a division with the Bills, a division with the Jets, who may get better. Charles thinks they're getting better, but no one really does around. And you got the Dolphins with two speedsters at wide receiver. I don't know if the Patriots can do enough to get anywhere near winning the division or making the playoffs, but at least they're better than some teams, like the Cowboys, who at least are trying. They're trying to be good. They are trying to buy players, and, well, it's better than the Cowboys, who've done absolutely nothing.
I think it was a matter of they had the most money to spend, so we had to go out and spend it, try to become good now while we have Drake May on a rookie contract. So might as well, right? I want to go with the Denver Broncos and their two moves, Dre Greenlaw and Hufanga, two 49ers defenders. They were already a top 10 defense last year in Denver. They added two more Pro Bowlers to that roster in Greenlaw and Hufanga. That is phenomenal moves for Denver. Jackson, we'll end it off with you for signings.
Yeah, so I'm going to go again with a team that's just made a whole bunch of great signings, a team that got a new head coach, from the Lions. I'm going with the Bears, making a great offensive line, trying to build this team, this culture that they have. They trying to protect Caleb Williams. They fixed what they needed to fix, getting Joe Thuney. They signed, I can't remember his name. They signed another offensive lineman. They can be this kind of team in an open NFC North, I think.
Let's shift to the other kind of moves we see in the offseason in the NFL draft. Jackson, it is your turn for mock draft season. What'd you cook up?
Yeah, I think you're going to not like some of this.
Not like some of this?
Yeah.
Well, we talked about your bad picks in the NBA, March Madness. Let's just look at some of your terrible picks here in the NFL
Jackson.
draft.
So we're going to start with the top five. I think my top five is pretty typical. You got Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Dual Carter, and Will Campbell, and Mason Graham. Any issues so far?
Not horribly. Abdul Carter at 3 to the Giants, when I think they need a quarterback, is certainly a choice. I like Cam Ward going 1 still. I mean, the Titans, I think they're so quarterback needy that they're going to make that pick. The Browns going Hunter. I'm sure you like that.
Yeah, we get Travis Hunter. I think he's the best player on the board for us. I really don't think we're a quarterback away. I don't think a young quarterback, helps us in any way. Getting a guy who can come in and play defense, lock down a side with Denzel Ward, who can also play some wide receiver, since we traded Amari Cooper away for a bag of pretzels, basically, to the Bills. We really got nothing left offensively. I think Travis Hunter fits in well at wide receiver. Let's look at some of your other picks you got here. A lot of offensive tackles going early.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of tackles needed in here, and I want to mention the big one, number 10. I have Genty going to the Bears. I was going to get them to draft a tackle, go offensive line, but then they traded. They signed. They already got their offensive line. Why not get the best running back in the talent to go behind that?
I love that pick 100% because, I mean, running back is a need in Chicago. If they can get a running back of his caliber, and if Genty proves to be what he can be in the NFL, pairing him up with Caleb Williams and now a new offensive line and the receiving threats they have and the new defense they have, the new head coach, I think it's a perfect fit for Genty and the Bears.
Honestly, I think you can get him later. When you look at Genty as a player, he's a great player, but I just don't think that you're taking a running back 10th overall, a guy who, I mean, he balled out for Boise State. Don't get me wrong. But he's not the same caliber coming out as Saquon Barkley was.
But it's a guy who can revolutionize your offense. Talking about the Bears trying to contend now, he's the right pick. He's what you need in that offense to fill that gap.
Caleb Williams is the Bears' future. Caleb Williams wants to throw the ball around. And I think if you add a dynamic running back who needs the ball in his hands, he's a 3-down guy. He's going to be there every single time. He's going to want the ball in their hands. I think it kind of goes back to a memory of the Colts early on with Peyton Manning. And you had a release star running back in Falk who was with him, and they got rid of Falk for Peyton Manning to really blossom as a true quarterback. And I think you're going to hurt Caleb Williams if you bring in a guy like Ashton Genty.
To each their own, But the Cowboys, picking up McMillan, receiver?
I see they need offense is what I kind of went with. They won't get Genty, won't get the running back. They take a wide receiver. I feel like a wide receiver could be a need. Get a secondary guy, get a more of a physical, short slot guy, and I think McMillan fits that perfectly.
I just don't see that being the pick for the Cowboys there. I mean, I think if Genty's gone, I just don't see them going receiver. They already have CD Lamb. I don't think they need McMillan by any means. I think they go somewhere else.
I exactly like what you said. I think they go in the defensive end and edge to pair with Micah Parsons. I just don't see them going wide receiver. I mean, you pay CeeDee Lamb all this money. Yeah. I mean, you have solid guys around. It's not like the Cowboys have terrible offensive weapons. I mean, Dak was hurt last year, so they had a down year. But they got some guys, Ferguson, the tight end. They don't really have a running back, so that's its own problem. But wide receiver-wise, I do not think this is a bad team. And I personally just don't like McMillan. I don't think he's going to be the next guy everyone thinks he is going to be. So I personally would not draft him at 12.
I just think that what he did in the Combine, he came out, he balled out, he did what he needed to do, moved his draft stock up, and I think the Cowboys are not going to pass up on that kind of talent.
Listen, I think 13 through 16 is perfect. Malachi to the Dolphins makes sense. Warren to the Colts makes sense. Pierce and Green back-to-back in 15-16. That makes sense to me. So overall, I think it's outside a few picks, I think it's reasonable. But now I want to see your next part of it. 16 to 32, I'm interested to see who you have going where.
Well, let's see what I have. So it changes here. We're going to start. I have the Bengals going defense and Jaheed Campbell, Kenneth Grant, Mikael Williams, and Emeka Ibuka going to the Broncos.
Okay, one, for the Bengals, I love that pick. Jaheed Campbell, to me, is one of the best defensive guys in this draft at the linebacker position. I mean, he's the best linebacker available to me in this draft. He's a good pass coverage guy, too. And the Bengals, God knows they need a pass coverage linebacker. But the Broncos taking Emeka Ibuka at 20, I'm not completely sold on that. I think they need a receiving threat, but I'm not sure if Ibuka is the guy they would go.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Ibuka is the right thing to go. I really like Matthew Golden out of Texas, who you have going 22. Also a guy that I don't think I see him on here unless I'm just blind. You have Michigan tight end just falling out of the first round?
There, yeah.
I have him falling out of the first round, yes.
I still think the Broncos go Loveland if he's there 20.
I think they just signed Evan Ingram. I think they have a tight end right now. I don't see them drafting a tight end. I see them going wide receiver.
Did they?
Yeah. It makes sense.
It's a good thing that we're doing these mock drafts after free agency because our picks do change a little bit once you find certain players. I'm just trying to look through the rest of these.
I got something too.
Yeah.
The Packers never go receiver first round. I don't see it happening.
I think that's their biggest need. They need a receiver.
But they won't. It's Green Bay. We know how they go.
See, this is what I think they should do. Maybe not what they
will.
But
I mean, if we're talking like mock draft, this is what they're going to do, and they're not going to take a receiver. That's what they're not going to do. That's
Maybe.
my opinion.
They might miss out, but I think it's a great pick for them. They have too many injuries in the wide receiver department. Getting somebody who's more reliable can be kind of a deep threat, quick guy.
My big question is that Steelers pick. Taking a D tackle.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure if I love it overall. I mean, the Steelers is a very odd team at the moment. I could see the Steelers trying to jump for a quarterback as well, since you're kind of in They're
It
up
just
in
depends
the
on where
air.
Rodgers goes.
I
Really.
mean, right, the Steelers don't have a quarterback at this moment.
Yeah, correct. But I'm assuming they'll get one with Rodgers or whoever decides to go to Pittsburgh. Because there's a lot to go on with the quarterback carousel right now.
Pittsburgh is an issue right now. Don't know where they really could go. They have a lot of options, so I went D-tackle.
I think overall, the back end of it, good as well. Booker to the Chiefs, nice. Donovan to the Eagles. Overall, pretty good job, Jackson. We're going to reset the order next week. I think we're back to Charles with the mock drafts next week. Should be a fun time on Grand Slam Sports.